Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien vs. Predator Galaxy podcast, the original Alien and Predator podcast. This is Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks, and joining me are usual partners in crime,
Adam Zeller, aka RidgeTop.
AJ Bischoff, aka VoodooMagic.
Though actually, maybe I should say hunting partners for the Predator-themed ones.
Yes.
Get better with your themes, Aaron. Come on. So, this episode is AJ's first of the year, actually. And we planned this one a good while ago, I guess. Really thinking about it, because AJ was fed up of us punishing him.
Yeah, we got sick of reading the bad Predator books.
And the Alien versus Predator books and the Alien books. So...
yeah, the last real great book we had was Into Cryptus.
Yeah,
for me.
Which was nearly a year ago.
Wow. Jeez. Wow.
Yeah. So we picked one with a good reputation. One that I don't believe AJ'd ever read. Is that right?
That's correct. Always wanted to read it. I owned it, but I need a swift kick in the ass to actually read a book. I need someone to motivate me because I seem just to do other things with my time. So I'm glad this came up because this one's been on my list for a long time.
Cool. So we don't tend to talk to each other
as
we're reading these
I
as
had
well.
never read this.
You've never... I thought you read it a while ago.
No, this was my first time reading this one.
Okay. Oh, we've got two first-time readers here. It's been for me about 4 years, I think. 4 years since I last revisited this one, because I went back and had a look over the thread to see some of the opinions over the years as well. And I discovered it had been a while. And I could tell it had been a while, actually, because as I was reading it, I was picking up on things that didn't stick out in my memory about the book. Because, like I said, this book has a good reputation. Generally very well regarded. You know, I posted on our Facebook and our Twitter as well to say we were doing this episode. We were recording this episode. What do you think of the book? So I'll read some of those comments out towards the end of the episode. But in general, it was again very well regarded and very positive thoughts on the book. Now that said, I'm gonna start off here because as I was reading this, I was like, you know what? This is a really good book, but it's a really good book regardless of the predators.
Yeah.
Because the predators aren't in the book very much. This is mostly a story of two blokes fighting each other, and the predators are a bit... I wouldn't say inconsequential to the story, because, well, they're not, but it is definitely a book about Sloane, the main protagonist, and I forgot the coach's name. And Regal, the human antagonist, and the predators are just there. But regardless of that fact, it is a damn solid read, in my opinion. Anyway, find out what you guys think in a minute or two. But I don't think I would. I had this down as a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10. I don't think I'd go that far anymore. Yes, it's still a damn solid book, but it's a Predator book. And I kind of feel like I wanted a bit more Predator in my Predator book, but I had such fun with Sloane and Regal and Mary anyway that I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm happy. I'm good. I'm enjoying this. So it's a very tight book as well. Very little fat.
30 something.
Yeah. Which I don't think is... I think is about right for... maybe a little bit shorter than the rest of the DH Press books, but not much. But it is a very tight, lean book that is very easy to get through. It maintains a very brisk pace that is not negative. I don't say that in a negative way. I mean, it keeps the books turning. I keep hitting the new chapters and I keep moving on. It's easy to read. Gets a little bit repetitive in some of the formula.
With the tracking.
And then he has a rest and has a flashback and stuff like that. But In spite of all that, I still really enjoy it. I would probably say an 8 out of 10 for this one. Maybe pushing towards a 9. Again, because it's just a really well-written book all around, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah. AJ, how about you?
Why don't you commit 8 or a 9? Let's nail you down.
You know, I can't fucking commit. I have to split the difference.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I have to do. Yeah, 8.5.
Okay.
Go on, AJ.
Well, for me, I've been looking forward to reading Predator Turnabout for a long time. And part of it is what Aaron was just talking about, because I mostly heard good things about it. And that's why I wanted to read it. Also, partially, it's because of this glorious cover art by Stephen Ewell. Because let's be honest, a great cover can get you excited about a book, regardless if the content is unknown.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is one fantastic cover, and to me,
yeah, we didn't do our holding up the book thing.
Oh yeah,
here's the book. It's actually pretty hard to come by these days.
It's very expensive. I suppose that's another factor we need to talk about. Is it worth $500 or whatever it goes for?
Yeah, that should be at the end, right? Yeah, this is the best cover art of all the Predator novels to me. And guys, it's embossed. Feel that? Nice. So,
but the other DH Press one's not. I can't remember.
I don't think all of them are, but I'm not. Don't quote me on that, everybody.
Oh, actually, while we're talking covers, can I just say how hilarious I find it that the credit for Stephen Perry is author of Aliens Earth Hive, rather than going for author of Aliens versus Predator Prey.
Yeah,
because that was his better received novel, right?
Well, I mean, he kicked off a whole fucking fan culture of the Oucher stuff. You know,
right.
that's all down to him.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it felt like Prey was what he was remembered for a bit more, I think.
Yeah. Well, and also, you know, I was maybe the most now, okay, at this point in time, I was really looking forward to reading this book because the sequel to this novel, the short story Rematch in the If It Bleeds anthology, was my favorite story in that collection.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So you had read that one first. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's funny because it's my least favorite.
Wow. Huh. That is funny. We'll have to get into that at the end. So naturally, I don't know. I was just really stoked to read this book, and I had high hopes, right? And the question is, were those high hopes met? You know, and I guess as my fingers turned to the last page, I would say not exactly. Now, look, the main characters of Sloane and Mary are great. And why is it, by the way, why is it, you know, all these tough guys, they always go by the last name, you know, Sloane. I think I'm going to start calling you Percival for this whole podcast. But the main characters of Sloane and Mary are great. They're top notch. The setup, predators coming to Alaska to hunt massive brown bears. Love it. You know, or a highly skilled sniper trying to take them out and simultaneously staying hidden. Brilliant. You know, it's like now we're talking. But as the book progresses, to me, it becomes bogged down by redundant character reflection. And to me, unstimulating, one dimensional villains, the illegal poacher villains. So, to be honest, my theme for today is I like it, but you know, I liked it, but the writing was too redundant. I liked it, but I felt the last act was a little poorly paced. And I liked it, but the book to me is in sorely need of a good editor. Aaron, you said this was, I guess, brisk. for you. For me, you shave off 25, 30 pages. You streamline the story, possibly, shaping up that finale, and replace some time spent with the evil poachers with more predator content in this quote unquote predator book where it's severely lacking. And to me, you then have one amazing book. You have an alien into Charybdis. But instead, as it is, it's just decent for me. So I'm just going to score this a 7 out of 10.
So yeah, I had never read this before, so I was kind of curious about it. Honestly, the only one from the DH Press years that I had read was
Your
Forever Midnight.
favorite. Your
Yeah, my
favorite.
favorite, the one we had so much fun with, right? So this was a much better book than that.
Yay!
Thankfully. And it was interesting in the sense that Xenopedia pointed this out, where there's nothing from the predator perspective at all, which you would expect there would be given Perry's work with AvP Prey. There is from the short story sequel to this. We do get a bit more of those predators and the perspective from them.
That was an editorial mandate.
Oh, okay.
So
Because
yes,
the anthology they needed. Huh.
no. So when Perry was working on this, they didn't want.
Oh, gotcha. So he might have done that if they hadn't have. Yeah, because it was more like the older Bantam stuff. It was like Big Game, like that novel where you get nothing from the Predator's perspective.
Far better than Big Game. Far better than Big Game.
It's been a long time since I've read that too.
I really didn't enjoy
Really?
Big Game.
I remember enjoying that one.
Not the novel, no.
But I really liked this book. I thought the setting was great. I thought the characters were compelling. It's mainly focused on two groups of characters. You have Sloane and a woman who's from out of state, and there's a really interesting kind of city to country cultural dynamic between those two. And eventually they're not super big on each other, but then they become more so. And then you have this group of poachers that is there after the bears, and the main character figures out pretty early on that these are space aliens, and so his past and his dealing with both the predators and the poachers is really interesting in this. There's a lot of emphasis on tracking, um, and like you were saying, Aaron, a lot of it's more humans hunting each other, and the predators are there, and one of the groups is aware they're there and is treating them as a significant threat, but they aren't really showing up too much. I mean, there's a few times where they do show up and then they're evaded, or they just miss the humans, or they're killed. The number of them are killed. Um, but overall, I thought the characters and the setting was compelling enough that this was just a really enjoyable read for me. Might I have liked to see a bit more predators in this? Yeah, but it kind of reminded me of the first Predator film, where you just really don't see much of it until the very end, where you get your final fight, which this book also has. So that aspect really reminded me of the original film. Um, but yeah, at some part of me was like, yeah, I wish we could have seen more predators in this. But I think they were handled quite well, and I guess this went back to the Yacha interpretation of them because of Perry after the last two DH Press books. For me, I'd probably go with a 9. Yeah, I'd probably go with a 9 just because of how solid of a read it is. I could also kind of relate to the setting a bit. I mean, Utah's not Alaska, but we do have our mountain forests here, and living in one for a number of years, like it was cool to see a lot of the descriptions of the woods and of the mountains and how you would find your way around. So yeah, I just really enjoyed it personally. I can see its shortcomings, and I can see that a fan might have some issues. Yeah, it meanders a bit, especially with the flashbacks, both with Mary and with Sloane and with Regal. There's 3 characters where it focuses on their flashbacks quite a bit. And the tracking, like as good as the tracking was and as interesting as it was, I felt like the book relied on it a bit too much. So maybe, I don't know, like after I heard you reviewing it, Aaron, I was like, there's always these things where you talk to somebody about a book and you're like, yeah, I didn't see that before. Maybe it is not as good as I thought. But I mean, I'm still going to go with a 9. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a very solid Predator book, and regardless if it doesn't have as much Predator focus as some of the other books do, I still would really recommend it.
But for $500.
Is it really $500 though? I mean, like,
It's hundreds. It's hundreds.
yeah.
I think I've seen some copies go for like $75, $70. You know, it depends on its condition as well. But I can't say I could recommend it at that price. But I think we're all in agreement it's a solid book. I'm just not as high as you both. You know, I have more issues with it, and it's not just the lack of Predator, but the way it was written itself. But yeah, but we seem to be all solid about it, so that's good. All in
Yeah.
agreement. Yeah.
At least it's worth your time if you're a Predator fan. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing where it's like, I don't know about from a Predator fan point of view, because I think it's a Lee, who the fuck, you know, who runs Xenopedia. Yeah. You know, he says this is his favorite Predator book. And one of the things he always says about Alex White stuff as well is it's not just a good book. I mean, not just a good Alien book. It's a good book. And with this one, I feel like it's a good book, but I'm not sure it leans heavily enough into the Predator part of it. So kind of like a flip around of that. You know, I enjoy it as a damn solid military, but oh my god, it's so technical in this book as well.
There's a lot of gun porn in the book,
which is going to put off people that might not be so interested in that. I mean, I don't know if they need some guys jizzing over a Chaytek sniper rifle in there, but it's like it's a solid hunter sniper gun porn kind of novel, but I don't. It's a weird one because I'm like, I don't know if there's enough Predator in there for me, but I love the moments that are in there because it's really interesting having this sniper versus a Predator, you know, because it's not what the Predators want. They want to be up close, they want to be stabbing. Yeah. And you've got this guy hiding his body heat miles away or however far away, having them, and I'm like, you know what? I buy it. I'm not sure it's massively entertaining though.
You know, I agree that there just needs to be a little more Predator, but I agree with the premise. You start with a good story and a good setting and good events, and then to throw a Predator in it. You know, I always go back to that Predator 2 trailer where, you know, they're showing off the drug war and the police against the Colombians, and then they say if that's not bad as it currently is, it's going to get worse, much worse. And they throw the Predator in. And if you watch just the beginning of Predator 2, and it's the drug war, and the Predator's just watching and observing, you're already getting pieces of the Predator. He's watching how they're fighting. He's watching who's the hero, right? It's Harrigan, you know, hanging out of that car. And we just didn't get enough of that to really justify as, you know, getting your Predator fix, you know. And even, which was really a missed opportunity to me, is when Sloane was watching the two Predators take down the bear, you know, which he referred it to as almost like dancing. And geez, get your camera in there. I know I'm talking visually, there's no camera in a book, but you know, get your story focal point in there. Just because he's observing from afar, take us in there, take us into the battle, and then pull us back out. You know, give us a little of that up front. And I just think that was a missed opportunity and a legitimate complaint about this book coming from a Predator fan. I mean, who's picking this up? A Predator fan. And I think it needed to go a little further. So I love the idea. Come up with a great story, a great scenario. You know, what was it? If It Bleeds, I think, had like one Predator story where there was a hurricane going on and a Predator decided to visit during this hurricane. I love that. But you just need a little more Predator content to make this a legit wonderful Predator experience.
Yeah, not arguing at all.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely could have used more, but I don't like, for me, it didn't knock it down too much because I felt like what we did see of the predators and the descriptions of them, the observations that Sloan made of them were interesting. And they weren't there to hunt the humans, they were there to hunt the bears, and the humans got involved, and that changed the whole situation for them. Um, so yeah, and I totally get the argument that it's very quick, the bit where he sees. By the way, if it wasn't obvious, we'll be going into spoilers for the book from here on out. But
Oh,
it's very obvious when he sees the two predators take down the bear. um, he's like, "Oh, I got to go back and get my big guns." It's like very quick to jump to that as like, "Oh, there's space aliens. Okay, I guess I better take them out." Back to the ranger station, and it's like, shouldn't he be like? It was kind of cool. I was like, "Oh, beings from another world, huh? I didn't expect that." Okay, back to the station. But and then he has kind of an argument with Mary. She's like, "No, these are like alien beings. Like, you're kind of just like them with how much of a rugged individual you are, and you hunt. Like, we need to like call the government or whatever." And so they have an interesting debate, and he's like, "Not in my backyard, we're just going to take them out." And so seeing that dynamic between the two and how they came to understand each other a bit more was also really good. But yeah, I get what you're saying, AJ. There were a few moments of the book where the predators were there and it just pulled away from them too quickly. It was the same thing when they found her in the hammock later in the book, and she just rolls down the hill and she's out of there. And it's like, you could have just focused on that just a little bit more.
it's
So
like
I,
they
I
really.
definitely get that issue.
It's like Steve Perry really didn't want them up close. You know, because it's like it's a complaint people talk about. When the possibility of Arnie comes up, or Ripley Sigourney comes up. This whole thing about older folk not surviving against the predators or the aliens or whatever. And the book deliberately puts Sloane on a slope, up a hill miles away, and it's like Perry really didn't want much physical action going off because the characters might not have made it. But what action we do have, it's like you were saying earlier. I feel like it is very original Predator-esque in that it's very brief, very brisk, not focusing on it. And then when we do finally get our Arnie versus Jungle Hunter, it's a short chapter. It's a short chapter that ends with Mary being convinced of the importance of guns, putting down, the predator from behind, and
Yeah, was that Mary's arc there? I mean, I had trouble finding out her arc.
did you not? As I was reading through it, I mean, I was like,
I mean,
this
she's
is.
you well,
It felt very much like Steve Perry trying to convince people that guns were
yeah.
necessary.
I don't think,
I
I
mean,
mean, she's still at the end. I don't think it was, as she says, it's not that black and white, but there's like a gray area, and I've seen more of the gray area. And I think it's the same from his perspective, too. He didn't realize at the beginning, he was saying, "Oh, your brother is a stupid." Like, he was stupid because he wanted to see the bears up close and he deserved to be killed. But at the end, knowing more about the situation in their past, he was like, "Oh, that's pretty messed up. I actually feel bad for him now." So they both had development as characters, I thought, where they both came to understand each other's perspective more. So
they definitely came to understand each other more. Absolutely. And sex will do that, by the way. Horniness. But, she's out in Alaska, right, to find some closure with the loss of her brother, where she feels guilty still of leaving him when he was young to fend for himself in like a house of horrors, right? And it was so bad that her brother Paul murdered both of her violent parents. And as a result, Mary swore off guns, and because it's the very weapon that her brother used to kill her parents. She doesn't want to touch him. Sloane calls it, it's just a tool, Mary. But no. But then finally, at the end, Mary picks up that 38 special and fires 5 shots into a predator, and she is all better now because the anti-gun person used the gun finally, and she got laid. And I don't see her arc completed here. I don't and especially as we read the sequel now,
Where she's a
she
proper gun nut in the sequel.
it's a proper gun nut. Yeah. She even has a ghillie suit. And if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I just, I don't get it. I don't understand what Steve was going for. Okay, guys, this novel had one of the best guns I ever read. That Shaytac sniper rifle.
Yeah.
I'm not a gun guy.
Intervention.
Did you look it up?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Yeah, it's a fucking beast.
And yeah, and I was like, why am I so interested in this gun? I don't have any gun catalogs. I don't have any gun magazines. But the way they worded it, that you couldn't buy it as a civilian. You could only be military or police, right? The sniper unit or something like that. But you could shoot targets from 2 miles away, and you had to account for the distance and the wind. And this gun apparently does all of that. And it's got to be like an arc because you got to account for gravity as well.
Well, he was saying it was more of a flat shot than a lot of sniper rifles were, and you didn't have to account for that stuff as much just because of the power of it.
Well, and the computer, the scope as well would also figure it all out for you.
Yeah,
I just remembered it from Modern Warfare 2 as the intervention because it was one of the most popular sniper rifles in the game, and so it was fun seeing that again because me, Aaron, I like my Call of Duty, but yeah, no, I thought it was cool. All the gun porn in the book and how it focused heavily on the sniper rifle and just seeing what a sniper rifle of this power did to a predator that wasn't expecting it. And it was cool to see the predator's hunting partner's reaction to that, just like, oh shit, and turns and fires on him. So it was weird though, because like 3 predators were taken out unaware and sniped. But there's like 4 predators in the book.
Well, really, all of them, really, isn't it? Because Mary takes the other one out from
there's
behind.
a bit more of a scuffle first, but the first 3, none of them knew it was coming. They were all just shot from the distance.
Yeah, I don't know how that ghillie suit controlled his body temperature. Do you know what I mean? He kind of alluded that
it wasn't
even though he's super.
It wasn't controlling it. It was containing it.
I guess so. With all the twigs and
yeah. I mean, I don't know how realistic that is. I actually meant to look it up before we came on here, but I was like, all right, Steve, you're telling me that's how it works. That's how it works.
Yeah. But
well, I was wondering if the glint actually works like that, because I know that's how it is in video games where you see the sniper's glint, which is how Regal spotted Sloan at the end. But a lot of sniper rifles don't have glints. A lot of them have like this little honeycomb thing that goes into the big sniper scope, so it doesn't have a glint. And even then, you can't really see the glint unless the sun's right at the right angle and the sniper's pointed right at you. So that I felt was kind of a plot device, but I mean, a little thing, who cares? So
can we talk about Regal, by the way? I mean, you guys seem to like these guys.
But yeah, he turned out all right, right?
These evil poachers to me, right, are just one-dimensional villains. And I need to ask you guys a question. Are illegal poachers just all naturally
rapists?
Murderers? Yeah. Are they naturally 100% rapey, where they're all willing to take turns raping a 40-year-old woman? Because they're not legal hunters, they're illegal hunters.
Yeah, I had the same eyebrow.
Bring her back here, and I'd like a word with her as well. I was like, really? Like, all you guys? Like, it was.
I would love to have greater depth to these guys versus Regal is just the smart one and the most talented, and the rest are just degrees of dumber and or less skilled. I mean, I wanted some meat on these guys, and these guys were paper thin, and I was getting these so much more than the Predators. Give me Predators, not these guys.
To be fair, the majority of the poachers are off relatively quickly, so it is mostly just Regal. And I think that's more of what you remember anyway. And as rapey as he gets, I'm not sure how realistic it is that, poachers are going to be.
He did get quite rapey, like both in what he said to her and his internal dialogue. Yeah. Like, it focused on that quite a lot.
But he was also more than just a poacher. The book goes into some effort to explain that he's a straight up crim. He's not just out there trying to get bears illegally for a bit of money. He spent time in the joint, as I think they probably put it in the book at some point.
But they go into his
and that kind
childhood
of stuff.
too. It was weird how much they went into his past and like how he protected his friend from a bully and stuff. I'm like, are you trying to make me sympathize with this character who's literally like, I
Yeah.
turned out all right, but then we see the shit he does in the book, and it's just like,
It just wasn't working for me. That's why I can't put this at a 9 or 8. Stuff like this. I mean, and as much as we were going into Regal's childhood and his friendships and all these flashbacks and stuff, I just wasn't interested in it. You know, I was like, bring me back to Sloane and Mary quickly, please. So, and geez, maybe it's just me because I'm a big fan of the Lethal Weapon series, that buddy cop film. But I kept being taken out of the book because the Lethal Weapon series stars Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. And
Ah.
these henchmen were named Mel and Gibson and Danny. And the fourth henchman was named Martin, which is Mel Gibson's character's name in the movie, in those movies.
oh man.
Martin Riggs. So I'm like, I keep seeing Lethal Weapon. I get 2 of them are a guitar reference, blah, blah, blah. But I kept seeing Lethal Weapon. I'm wondering, is this intentional? Really? Mel Gibson, Danny, and then Martin, Mel Gibson's character name? I mean,
That's funny. I've never seen Lethal Weapon, so I didn't make that connection, but
you're
I've
missing
seen the
out. At least
first one
movie.
once, and I really
I've
enjoyed
been
it.
meaning to see it. It's been on the list.
It was
for a long
good.
time.
I've been doing a rewatch of that for a while.
How many
to be
did they
fair.
make?
Like 4,
4,
weren't they? And a
but the
TV show.
first 2 are worth it. Oh yeah, the TV show. That's right.
And
I
that with
didn't
like
catch that.
Damon Wayne or
Wayans?
Wayne Damons, yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
Damon. Yeah, he played the Roger Murtaugh character. Yeah. So, but
Well, there was
yeah,
a
that
weird. Sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. It just kept taking me out of the book. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I mean
it was-
that's fair. I complained about that with Infiltrator. You know, all the references to the various cast and crew and writers
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Obviously, it didn't bother me because I don't know Lethal Weapon as intimately as you do, so it
Yeah.
wasn't something I picked up on. Which I suppose it might be the same set of Infiltrator. It depends. Mileage may vary depending on how into the background you were of that series.
I felt like it couldn't be a coincidence, but just to have Mel and Gibson as 2 of your guys, right?
Bro.
There
Yeah.
was a weird aspect though with in regards to Regal in terms of he's also a tracker himself, and it's made clear he's not quite as seasoned as Sloane is. But he so he sees where 2 of his group were initially killed by the predators, and he notices these bigger footprints, and he notices that the tracks for the ranger, which because he knows about the ranger station and someone who was with him, the woman, he's like, oh, they didn't kill him because the tracks are more fresh, and but then later he like puts it all together in his mind like, oh no, Sloane has these like laser weapons and rocket launchers and stuff, and he believes it until the very end, until right before he dies, and he sees a predator and he's like, oh yeah, she wasn't lying, huh, crazy. But I was like, before you realized they didn't kill him, but then you went back to like, oh, he must have killed them, and it's like you didn't I don't know, I felt like he was doing gymnastics in his mind to convince himself that Sloane was the one who had done all this, when earlier he realized that it wasn't them. So that was kind of a weird dynamic, because he goes on this revenge quest against Sloane. And I'm like, you really think he did all this? You really think he has all this weaponry and everything you've been seeing here? Like, you literally see the plasma shots, and he's like, huh, where did he get that weapon? Like, so
He's obviously crazy, man. He's beheading people
right.
and putting holes in their chest. He's so crazy. He's lost it. Yeah, I didn't buy that either. Yeah, that was rough. But I don't know. Aaron, you were talking about that finale, man. I mean, that's where I think an editor needed to step in, right? Because so here's Sloane, right? The book's finale. Mano y mano with the predator, ready to throw down. Sloane pulls the knife. The predator, ready to throw down, draws his arm-mounted blades, ready to square off. They come head to head, and then long ago, Sloane spent time with an old man in the country of Java.
Yeah, that was a convenient bit.
Was Satirico, and he was pleased, and he knew martial arts, and he also had a Marine hand-to-hand instructor named Pablito, and he was half Mexican, half Italian. I'm not exaggerating, guys. And he couldn't win in a knife fight. with the old man, and the old man said, I would flay him like a fish, and blah blah this and blah blah that. And for Christ's sake, almost 2 pages of this. You're almost 2 pages, and you're taking the piss out of the suspense, the momentum that you set up with this Predator Sloan fight. And I'm like, this stuff needed to be tossed out by an editor here. And this is where, the
Or
book
thrown in
started-
earlier and justified earlier.
Yes. You don't stick it in here. And it's like breaking for a commercial almost. But you're reading a book. And I don't know. Maybe the editor was asleep at his job. I don't know.
Well, I mean, one of the complaints that you do see regarding this is errors, grammatical and spelling throughout. And I didn't really notice terribly many of them.
It wasn't many, but I noticed a few.
So I don't know. Maybe it didn't get enough look at.
Yeah, so I'm saying that you just needed to shave some of this stuff off, I mean, you already had an overlap of events from other people's perspectives. Like Mary would see Sloan come and, oh my God, it's Sloan. And then we rewind back in time and it's from Sloan's perspective, and he hears Mary talking and crying and he walks into the woods and there's Mary. Hi, Mary. And they say the same thing, He's already doing these repetitive events from people's perspectives where you read a section and then you read the same event again from another person, which can be fascinating depending on the event you're describing. Here, not so much. But then you have this repeated stuff in the woods that felt like filler to me, like this, this is my forest, or this was his forest, not in my backyard. And he hunted men in Vietnam, and the old man's feelings were back, and he didn't expect damn aliens. And it was the same reflections and the same variations of the same reflections over and over and over again. And I'm like, trim it down, man. It feels like filler. It
feels very much like Perry didn't have enough meat to go in this story.
Yes.
Because it's again, going back, I liked it. I liked all the flashback stuff to Vietnam and the various random stories. It's the kind of thing I'd happily sit and listen to some vet talk about in a bar or something, that kind of thing. So I find this book really weird because majority of what we can probably talk about is going to be, well, that was kind of disappointing. Yeah. It's like you saying, I enjoyed this book, but then at the end of it all, I'm like, well, I still enjoyed it. I'm still quite happily sit down and beast through this book again. It's weird.
Did you review it for the site back in the day?
Yeah, I fucking loved it.
You gave it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I give it a 5 out of 5. I was like, you know what? It's not that much of a Predator story. It's a character story to do with Sloan and Mary and Regal, but I love it.
I loved it too, but it started straining on me after 2/3 of the book.
I can get those arguments. And now that you mention it, once you start to think about something a bit more, like even things you really enjoyed, like you're like, yeah, they threw a flashback right in the middle of that final battle with the Predator, didn't they? And I can get it. They want to explain like, oh, this is how he can stand up to a Predator with a knife. But I think you could have done that earlier in the book so as to not take us away from the fight there. It was kind of amusing, the Predator's mannerisms in the fight, how he like knocks the guns out of his hand because 3 of his hunting partners have been killed by them. And Sloane's like, oh, he has wrist blades on his right hand side, so all I have to do is stay to his left. And he tries that. The Predator like throws his arms up like, you think I'm stupid? And so I thought that some of those bits where we finally saw a bit more of the Predator at the end were cool. The final fight was a bit short, and it felt like we had already wrapped up most everything at the end, So I can get that. For me, it was still just such an enjoyable read, and the characters and the setting and the environments are what made it. And I really liked the whole sniper aspect about it as well, like going into his history with that, going into the mindset as a sniper and what they're thinking about. Like, so it was cool to see more of that, like given the whole Isabel thing and Predators, like it felt like we were going more into that with this. And so
maybe Isabel's her child. Let's do some fan theories, right?
They all have to be related.
Yeah. They had a kid and they didn't tell her about the Predators, and Sloan trained her.
I do really like the whole sniper part of this, you know, because I mean, on the one hand, it's a little like dude took down 3 predators without
2.
breaking a sweat, but on
Oh,
the
no,
other
3.
hand,
Yeah.
but then on the other hand, it's like, yeah, he was up a hill, up a mountain in a bodysuit that was containing his heat, so the predators couldn't see him, and they had no idea. And he set a trap for the second one. He set a trap for the second one, and set up. And it's kind of like it's a balance thing. It's like why I don't have a problem with the predators dying in AvP, because I think it's balanced to the strengths. And in this book, when you go, dude took down three predators, 2 predators. Yeah,
3.
2. No,
You count the one at
Reed,
the end.
no, that goes
Oh,
to
no,
Mary.
because married.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that goes to
So
Mary.
you're right. He took
But
down 2.
dude took down 2 predators from miles away, and it's like, yeah, okay, I get you, I buy into it. Yeah, I believe it. So that didn't really fuss me, and I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, I think we all like that, right? We all like
Mhm.
Sloane, and we all like the cat and mouse and the tactic and the counter tactic and trying to anticipate each other's
Each other,
moves.
yeah, that I really enjoyed as well. Like when Regal was like, "Oh, this old man's losing it," and then he's like, "Wait a minute, is he
Yeah.
really losing it?"
Or is he
That
wanting me to think he's losing it? Like, so.
I enjoyed that kind of stuff.
I'm
That
surprised it
worked.
took him that long to figure it out, though,
Yeah.
because Regal was no idiot. So,
I did like at the end how he was like, one or the other would have killed me, but they both happened to arrive at the same time, and I was just lucky. And then Regal killed the predator. Sloane saw where he had fired from, and then sniped him. So that was kind of a cool bit. I feel like a lot of the books in these franchise have the more drawn out fights, and we do get that at the end with this. But it was kind of interesting to just have that tension so present, but the fights are over in an instant. Somebody just gets sniped, but you have all that tension beforehand, and I thought this did that well. And it was cool to see the Predator's reaction to that, because they're more up close and personal. It did make me think of like the NECA Ultimate version of Scout, and they
With
talk
the,
about him sniping, and they're
yeah.
like, "Oh, the Predators don't like to snipe, but he's a special exception." And I'm like, that would be such a cool
It would have
story,
been.
like a sniper battle between a Predator and a
Yeah.
human. Like, so I don't know, maybe in the future that would be cool. But I just thought this book handled tension, it handled character really well. So yeah.
I would agree, just to an extent. I just think it overplayed its hand. So,
Yeah.
Some
I can see what
some bits made me cringe though, with the way
Uh-oh.
that Sloane referred to foreign people, basically.
Yeah. This wasn't a 2010s book.
Yeah, that little brown dude or that little white yellow man. I was like, oh, that's that wouldn't make it past. And the thing is,
What was he,
even
60? He was 60 years old?
60. And
Yeah.
even for 2008, I still think that was a bit cringe for 2008 kind of behavior. But I'll tell you what I did really like: the age-appropriate relationship. I absolutely fucking hate that Steve Perry had, at the end of Nightmare Asylum and into Female War, surrogate father Hicks want to bang his, surrogate daughter Newt. Sorry, Wilkes and Billy.
Wasn't that only in the books? That
was only in the books.
Yeah.
It was only in the books, and I hate it. And one of the things I hated about Expendables, was Sylvester Stallone wanted to bang the 30-year-old when he was 60 something. So I was quite happy with what I felt was more of an age appropriate relationship.
Yeah, Mary was in her 40s and Sloane
late
was
40s,
in 60. I mean, women date older guys, man. Like when I was
Didn't
born,
we
my
read
mom
that
was.
there was some stiffening up, though, Aaron? I think I read in the when they're huddling together, he quickly stiffened up, something like that. To those, I don't think it's completely PG as you suggest.
Well, I'm not saying PG. It didn't make me cringe at the idea of the 45-year-old woman and the 60-year-old bloke.
Yeah.
Well, does that idea make you cringe? That happens a lot here in the U.S. those
No,
age disparities.
No, I think
Go
he's
ahead.
saying if she was younger, if she was like, right, Ed?
2030, yeah, because
Yeah.
that was something
Yeah.
I hated about the Expendables was the really old Sylvester Stallone,
Okay.
and the 50, 60-year-old Hicks, getting it on with the 20, 30-year-old
Yeah. When I was born,
new.
my dad was 55 and my mom was 45. And so it's a common age gap here, especially once you start getting past your 30s and older, people here in America. You see that more. So I could totally buy it. And honestly, I feel like Sloan, not to get too personal here, but I feel like Sloan kind of reminded me of my dad in a few ways. Like my dad was a former Marine, and he loved hiking as well. He loved like wilderness, and like just getting lost in the wilderness. Like literally, my mom and I sent like search and rescue after a few times. So like I could kind of see my dad in Sloan a little bit, just like relating to it as a character, not like crazy sniper or anything, but like there were those aspects there that I was like, oh, he's an older badass, like that was cool. So,
Yeah, I liked his no nonsense personality. I didn't believe his, the way he flippantly reacted to the aliens, at the
yeah,
predators.
that
I
was a
thought,
little like, huh. Oh, okay. I
huh,
guess they're from another planet then. But it was kind of cool seeing how he saw their camp because we had never seen like predator tents before, and he just kind of briefly mentions those.
yeah,
But I would have
briefly.
liked to have seen him, like you were saying, AJ. I would have liked to have seen him describe the camp a bit more, like show us, just like in Predators, where we have like shit
Yes.
strung up in the camps and like skulls on racks and stuff. Like,
Yeah, give us
so
a little more than that, than these flashbacks. And yeah, I agree with you, and most of those flashbacks I think were poorly timed. And the one that didn't even make sense to me is when well, Mary's flashback, where she I mean, the readers learned really early that they were not really killed in a car accident, but shot by her younger brother Paul. And but by time she reveals this info to Sloane, the readers already have long since learned it. And Sloane doesn't offer any interesting vantage point to it. It's other than, gee, Mary, I'm sorry. I mean, why not have Mary say, I want to tell you something, Sloane. My parents didn't really die in a car accident. Then cut to that last piece of flashback, where both Sloane and the readers learn at the same time, and it has suddenly a punch at that moment, an impact, not just to Sloane but the reader. But eh, again, editorial decisions, I think. So I think in all, both moments were well written, but someone needed to say, hey, you need to merge these two. He needed a guiding hand. You need to take this flashback out of the finale fight, and you need to put this flashback here. So because he's a very talented writer, he just seems like, at least on this book, he needed some guidance, in my
Do
opinion.
you like Steve Perry then? Here's the thing, because I don't think I've ever heard your opinions on Prey or War. No, not the War Matters. On Prey or Earth Hive or anything like that. I don't
Well,
even know what you think of the Algae. I can't remember.
what did you just hear from me in the beginning? That rematch was my favorite story out of If It Bleeds, right?
Okay.
So, and I enjoyed the writing here. I mean, I really got into Sloane. I really got into Mary. I think he needed. Like I said, there wasn't enough meat. There was too much fat here. But for the first 2/3 of this book, I'm like, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the writing. I'm enjoying the characters. I'm enjoying the scenario. I'm enjoying the whole setup and the tactics and the counter tactics. And so yeah, I liked his writing. It's just I think it felt like it just lost his way, even the way everything concluded. I'm like reading the Predator fight and I'm feeling the pages, right? There's only a few pages left, and I'm like, how is this going to conclude in a satisfying way with these characters? And it didn't for me. So I just and then and it brings me back to where I was like, man, this is kind of dragging out here, and we're going over the same issues again. And was it necessary? Let's put a little more story at the end of this novel and beef up the fight a little. And so it's maybe it's easy for me to say, but I just felt like some juggling would have really helped this book. Not just changing what Steve did, but just rearranging, right?
Mhm.
So that's
I
at least
see what you mean. Definitely fair critiques of the book. Aaron, this was Steve's only Predator novel, like just
Mhm.
Predator, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and it would be nice if it was easier to find along with South China Sea. Hopefully now with the lawsuit being where it's at.
I think that was always something completely different, though. They haven't been republished long before any of
Well, they
this.
did the aliens ones in the omnibus. They did the aliens.
They did.
press
Yeah,
one.
there's got to be something extra special legal wise going off with this. Otherwise, they would have done these years ago.
Yeah, well, hopefully they can, because it would be a shame if they never got a re-release. But yeah, we haven't really gotten too many Predator books in the new era, have we? Because
Just the anthology. Yeah, just the anthology and Stalking Shadows.
And Stalking and the one that was part of the Rage War trilogy.
We don't
which was
count
called
that.
Predator, but it was an AvP book. Yeah. So Titan really hasn't been doing too many Predator books. So
we had the Predator books too, right?
That's true. Yeah. Well, the prequel was good.
Yeah, the prequel was good.
Yeah. So I guess original books, non-movie books, but I guess the prequel was original.
So you probably remember, I'm not actually that big of a Steve Perry fan. I much prefer his daughter. I much prefer Stephanie. And something made me laugh in this was when Sloane was trying to imagine the Predators, and you got the whole Ooman part, and he was sort of chastising himself for how ridiculous it was to try and humanize the Predators, and I just sort of was like, ha 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 ha. Yeah,
I was a little.
Yet he did it in his sequel. So.
Yeah.
How many years
he
later?
threw it in there and is like, nope, these aren't the Hish. But it was kind of funny. I was like, how would Sloane know that they were Omen? He would call them Omen, but I was like, it's just his imagination.
Yeah, it's just it wasn't. But that made me chuckle.
Yeah, it took me out of the book for a second, but it made me smile.
There's not really a lot to say on it, is there?
Yeah,
no, and that tells you something.
Straightforward book. Like the dynamics are kind of simple. Like you can get into it. It's a good read. But yeah, I feel like I'm like, what else is there to talk about this book? Okay, one thing I just remembered: the Predator's weaponry. Like it describes them as like little rockets, little missiles. It doesn't really describe it as plasma fire, which is kind of weird. But it comes out of the shoulder cannon. Like he specifies that. But he says that they're rockets.
I mean,
I'm like, is this Predator 2 where he's just using the firework effect as an example, and he's taking it literally? Like,
I think it feels more like the firework effect of P1 and 2 rather than the plasma of the games or anything like that.
Well, P1 it looked more like plasma.
No, that was definitely a firework.
Yeah, but you had the blue balls of plasma.
Well, I suppose when he was shooting Dylan as well, I guess.
Yeah.
But would Sloane have anything to compare that to? I mean, he could see the projectile, right? Even though it's a ball of plasma, he could see the projectile come from the cannon and shoot. I would assume it's a rocket too. Now, I don't have the Marine background that he does, but I would assume there's some sort of projectile there, making that big ball of light. So I didn't really have an issue. I just took that as his interpretation, not literally these are rockets.
There's also the whole aspect of them being so far up north in Alaska and this being the summer, and they say that the nights are only 3 hours long. So that was kind of an interesting bit, I thought.
Was that a bit of real world Adam enjoys kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the white nights. Yeah, I like that.
Do we want to talk about Rematch a little bit?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool too. So that is in this one, Predator If It Bleeds anthology.
I didn't bring mine for that.
And Steve came back to write a short in that one. And that was a sequel to this one. And just like one of the sequels in the recently released AvP Ultimate Prey, this takes place a few years after, more than a few years after.
It's about 10 years, I think.
9 or 10 years, yeah.
It's 9 years, I think, because he said he was about to hit the big number of age, right?
Yeah.
Which had to be 70. So
So yeah, even though they had their cave risk of death, fear, love making bit in Turnabout, they decided to stay together and have a relationship for that long. And it was interesting seeing like how their dynamics had changed. Yeah, she was more open to guns now, and you could tell he had trained her for a bit.
she had a ghillie
And
suit. Yeah.
yeah, and they were living in Oregon, which is I believe where Steve Perry himself lives. So it's like, oh, cool. They like split the difference between California and Alaska, and meet in the middle.
I'm now just remembering the fucking meth bikers. Yeah, Perry's bad guys are a bit OTT.
Yeah,
But those weren't
I
bad
mean,
guys. They were just meths that got dispatched.
bikers do meth. Some of them, I guess.
What I mean is they weren't bad guys to the protagonists, right?
Yeah,
So,
Yeah. And he mentioned that too. He was like, "Oh yeah, you can just stay out of their way, whatever." Like, so.
Yeah, for me, Rematch, I'm like, now you're talking. The Predators were the main villains. The story was practically all meat, no fat, no fillers,
no flashbacks.
streamlined. No flashbacks. I think there was one tiny one, but otherwise no. But it was still cat and mouse, tactic and counter tactic, outsmart your opponent, but lean, mean, and not redundant. So to me, this is what Turnabout needed to be. And
a short story in an anthology.
No. Just more story, more scenario, where you didn't have to fill it with this filler, and there was no complaints of a lack in Predator in this one. Now me, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Predators talking. I thought it was tolerable here. I actually prefer just to know what they're thinking versus dialogue, because I think that dialogue humanizes them too much. But once the female predator lost her mates and it was Sloane and Mary against her, I was like, this is just great. This is what I wanted in Turnabout.
Did the Predator perspective make you wish we had gotten that side of things more in Turnabout in terms of like their perspective, or just more focus on the Predators in Turnabout?
Not the dialogue, but I do
wish
we had more of their perspective. Yeah, the dialogue where they're almost like a
married couple.
Married couple.
Yeah.
They are a hunting couple. They are mates, and one of the predators is female in this one. And so there was
you
some
could do that without understanding their dialogue, and more that the narrator of the book is just sort of interpreting their body reactions, and I think that's the way to go. Unfortunately, once her mate died, I was like all smiles. So
I did like how those what do you call the triangle parentheses, Aaron? The brackets,
the triangle brackets. We'll go triangle
brackets, whatever.
It's more than an
instead of quotations to try and
that
make
was
them
nice.
seem less human. But the dialogue I thought was all right. Like it was the same thing with The Predator, right? Like it was kind of cool to see a little bit more of the dialogue, even though that movie's has problems. But just that aspect of it, I thought was well done in this. And
I think it helps, at least to me, when it's a subtitle. When you're not imagining these are the words coming out of its mouth. But I found it funny that still Mary calls Sloane by his last name.
You see, that really annoyed me, because the book ends with her asking him and him telling her, but we don't find it out in the book. But instead, in the short, she just refers to him as Sloane. I was like, Steve did not go back and reread his book before he.
I know. I imagine they're married and she took his last name. Sloane, breakfast is ready. I'll be there in a second, Sloane.
Well, it was funny. She's like, it's not as like testosterone fueled of a first name as I would have expected, or whatever. But we don't know.
Stan.
Well, you can't know it because he's
really.
Did
he
no, I'm guessing.
You're guessing Stan,
or Stan,
Jim. I don't know. Whatever.
Tough guys go by their last name, Ziller.
Yeah. But yeah, so I really enjoyed this as well. It's interesting reading a short sequel to Turnabout and seeing how different of pacing you have to do with an anthology, because you only have you have one chapter to work with, right? So the pacing is a lot faster and it's jumping around a lot more. but I felt like this did it effectively. Like they meet up with this police character, so we're really focused on 3 main human characters. Yeah, when we get to the predator perspective, the female predator's perspective, which her male hunting partner is killed because he's overconfident, and like, oh, these old people are the ones that took out 4 of our predators, and I was like, of course he's gonna die. So that was a little like predictable, where it's like a cocky male is gonna get destroyed quickly. But it was interesting seeing her perspective. She was like, she grieved over him, but she was also angry, and she's like, oh yeah, he kind of, he messed up there. And in his dying breath, he was like, yeah, you were right, I underestimated them. And then dies after he was blasted with the sniper rifle. So credit to him for that, at least, I guess. But it was cool seeing her kind of like, oh, this is, this human's also a hunter, and they think like I would be doing this, so they're going to do this. And so she's getting into the tactics dynamic, just like Sloane and
Regal did,
and Regal did in the first one. So that aspect was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed the cat and mouse aspect of it. But you know me, it's the oucher stuff. It's the internal stuff that I can't stand.
And
like, even
I have slain Kanehemeda, like
and even things like the whole married dynamic in this, where I was like, I'm fairly sure in Prey they didn't couple up like that, and Deshande been and nailed a good fair few different women and had lots of different babies and stuff like that. Where I was like,
I'm sure some of them do, and some of them go more the free spirit route. But
then it always comes down to that. What was our favorite thing with some of the consulting we did? It's a different clan. They do things differently.
Yeah, it's always just a different clan.
Yeah, that's how you explain any differences.
That's the easy way. Yeah.
But yeah, it was my least favorite of If It Bleeds, but that's not to say I hated it, because there's not a single one in If It Bleeds I don't like. It's just,
wow, you even liked it better than Dutch's sequel, Drug War? Not Dutch's, Harrigan's sequel.
Yeah. Bless that.
With that sidekick who would recite movie lines, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
I don't like Steve Perry very much. That's the thing. I don't really enjoy him. His writing.
I do. Praise one of my favorite books.
I think he stole one of your girlfriends back in the day. Bitter.
Although I still haven't read the original Alien Earth War books either, Aaron.
Well, he made aliens as dumb as dogs in those. So I don't really like Perry's take on either creature. Like, I fully understand how important he is. I just don't really like it.
Hey, like 3 World War, right? Turn them into dogs.
Yeah.
Well, this time I revisited Rematch with Audible, the audiobook. And it's really neat because the guy doing the narration sounds like a 69-year-old man.
Yeah, I thought so too.
And it really sounds like, this is Sloane recounting these events. And I think it really played well. So I highly recommend checking out the audiobook if you've read it and liked it, in text. But go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, no, I read the digital version with the well, I didn't do it with the narration, but out of curiosity, I turned on the narration after I had read it, and yeah, I noticed that as well. I was like, oh, it's an older narrator, but read Turnabout the old-fashioned way and smelled the old book pages. That's always fun.
Well, that was our only choice. There is no audiobook for this one, which is a shame.
Or ebook either.
Yeah.
The Predator's weaponry in Rematch was interesting as well. How they described it as like what they wanted to spike him or something. And
I don't think she meant a literal spike, as in more so much as
just take him out.
Just kill him. Yeah.
Just a different terminology for the plasma again.
Instead of getting in and getting that so good gratification, by using your blades, they're just going to spike and put a plasma bolt.
Yeah.
Right? I never took.
Yeah.
It
she was like, I just want his skull because he killed my mate, and I'm not going to risk it anymore at this point. So,
yeah,
it was interesting how she slashed the tires too, so they couldn't get away. Like,
that was awesome.
They did. They did something similar in Turnabout as well. Remember?
Right, the ATVs.
Oh, that reminds me. Actually, there was something else I liked in this. That was I thought a nice little bit of continuity was in Turnabout. The whole jamming thing. But it was, they were jamming all the radio stuff. But that also kind of felt like Pray to the Heavens, where they also had a similar thing in that. Was like, that's not something we see very often, but actually I quite liked it.
Yeah. We also didn't talk about kind of like the very end of Turnabout where she's like, should we go back to the station and wait for the plane to show up? And he's like, no, these things might clean up the mess here. And then they see the explosion in the distance
And they
feel
hear
the
ship
shockwave.
go, yeah.
And so the Predators having the cleanup crew, like the mothership coming down, just like he thought they would, and taking care of the bodies. And in Rematch, you have, it seems like the self-destruct is automatic when they die because her mate dies and she disables it. But we've always seen it like a manual activation before. And then hers goes off at the very end.
And that would make sense to me because it's always been my perception. It's not, you know, some fans, Superior Iron Man likes to think it's a big just fuck you, you know, to you beat me, but you're going to die. But it's been always my perception that it's always just to get rid of the tech, you know, your ship's nearby. It's to get rid of your tech on you. So basically you don't affect human evolution, you know, like we saw in that video game, Predator Concrete Jungle, right? You just want to keep your technology out of the hands. So that logic always worked for me. And then this logic of it going off automatically supports that logic. And I think it makes sense. You know, you don't want to fuck with the environment. You don't want to make them extinct. You don't want to change their technological advancement evolution, and you just want to go hunt and then, you know, collect your trophies and off you go.
Yeah,
that's fair. I like it better as a fuck you. I still think they're sore losers. But no, I completely
we know how you
understand it.
feel in general about the honor and all that.
Yeah.
Stuff.
It's a by clan thing, right?
You like them as psychopathic killers.
Man, wait till you read South China Sea.
Are you telling me there's psychopathic killers in that one?
There's a very interesting psychological warfare kind of moment on the Predator's behalf in South China Sea. I'm curious to see how you react to that.
Well, we've seen that in Predator 2, right? He was really fucking with his prey psychologically. Yeah.
So maybe I like that.
Yeah, you kept poking the lion by killing all his friends, and then hanging that Danny's necklace in the tree. So
it's easily my favorite interpretation of the Predator. It's South China Sea.
Yeah.
Easily my favorite interpretation.
And if it bleeds,
the Predators
not if it bleeds. Sorry, what was that graphic novel? Thicker Than Blood. Thank you. Sorry.
No, I wouldn't call that my favorite interpretation. I just really enjoyed the whole.
Oh, you love them as killers. You love them.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, they were. Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, Adam, sorry.
So there's a bit in Rematch where so this is like 9 years later, right? And the Predators have found them living in a different state. And Mary brings it up. She's like, how the hell did they find us? And he's like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to know that. How the hell did they find them and track them down? And it kind of reminded me of Predators, where it's like they're on Earth, they're stalking all these different killers, and then incapacitating them, taking them to the hunting preserve. It's like there's got to be Predators just like on Earth that understand like how to look into human systems or something and look people up. And so that sort of like
just one breaking into the library.
See in the Predator that he can find an elementary school by a kid's, you know, crayon writing. So like,
well, we don't talk about the Predator.
So
I mean, to be fair, they do talk about in Rematch, you know, footage of the hunt and everything was uploaded to the, which I think was kind of cool, because that wasn't that also one of the things that Jim and John Thomas talked about for that early version of Predator 2, where or what Stephen told us anyway, you know, where footage had gone back to the ship and
where the second Predator in Predator 2 would have gone to the blast site and retrieved, I think,
the
ARM computer, and then apparently that was recording everything. I don't remember if it was like a hologram.
Would the ARM computer have blown up?
Apparently not. Maybe there's a little shield that I don't know, but I think it was definitely like one of the gauntlets or something.
I mean, they'd have had to have worked on it, but that concept again is something I love as well, and it's something in South China Sea that I really like. is this idea that the predators GoPro all their hunts. So
Yeah.
all those airsofters
You
and
know
all
they
those
would want to record all
paintballers.
that, yeah. And it goes to
And
that in AvPR as well too. Like they have that element with that.
I love that. I love the idea that sometimes when the predators are just chilling, they're like, you know what, I'm gonna pop that big.
This is a good hunt. Let's check this out. Yeah.
That was a good hunt. They've got their own Predator YouTube where they upload all the cool.
Didn't they have like a Black Mirror episode where people like watch recordings of their own memories all the time? And like, I don't think the predators would be too into that, but at the expense of going out and hunting. But just an interesting concept, I think.
Yeah.
Anything else to say on any of these books?
Would you want to see these characters? I guess they'd probably both. Well, at least Sloan would probably be dead by now, right? If the first book came out in 2008.
No, he got the predator blood, just like Dutch.
That's right. Yeah, he just
Stargazer coming.
Predator a little bit.
Stargazer coming game, or no, we're on OWLF.
I think the characters. I would love to see more of these characters. The characters was the part. Or Mary and Sloan. Don't need any backstory with Regal, but. Yeah, I enjoyed them coming back in rematch. And I wouldn't mind. I love that. That he can even sense the predators near him. His hearing had gone. And he had to rely on Mary, right, in rematch to be able to hear things pretty much because his hearing. He used to wear those. Oh, those were so cool in Turnabout. What were those?
Oh, right, the electronic earmuffs. Yeah.
Have you ever worn anything like that?
No.
Yeah.
So I have some cheaper ones for airsoft where it's more like dampening for like the pyros and stuff like that, but they can also amplify the other bits and pieces. Not quite to the quality of perhaps Sloan's things, but they are quite interesting and quite cool. Really weird.
Yeah, I've seen people use them at the range. I just use the earplugs and earmuffs myself.
I always assumed they were just ear protectors because I know, those loud gunshots can blow out your eardrums. So I had no idea that some of those can actually, fine tune your hearing and you can hear like, a bear take a shit, 10 miles away. At least the way he was describing it, right?
I'm sure there's probably some high-tech versions that are that good. Well, maybe not quite that good, but, reasonably good. Yeah, I did really enjoy all the technical stuff in the book. The gun porn aspect of it was so much fun.
With all the Vietnam flashbacks and the fact that like a bit of Dutch's crew were in Vietnam.
We forgot the Arnie mention.
Speaking of Dutch, yeah. She says the governor at the end of Turnabout when she's having another dream that she's in Santa Monica. And of course, we had a chuckle at that. I'm sure we all did. It was just like, what? Arnold's in the Predator universe? Like, why not? But yeah, the fact that Dutch's original crew fought in Vietnam, we had all the Vietnam flashbacks here. It made me really want like a Vietnam Predator story. Is that South China Sea? No, South China Sea is contemporary.
Well, if I remember rightly, the guy in Hunters and Hunted was a Vietnam vet, and that's where his encounter was.
Yeah, but make Predator the enemy, right? Like, but give me a first battle, a Vietnam battle like you got in the first movie, the Predator classic film. But then, suddenly make both sides team up, right? The Vietnamese and the Americans. Because they realized, they got to stick together to survive this otherworldly threat. Don't make him a behind the scenes villain like you did in this book. And I would love it. I would love it in Vietnam. I would love it in all different time periods. Well, I want to see him against Spartans. I've always had that. I know we had something similar now in an Alien book, right?
I'm fairly sure, in the flashback stuff though, in Hunted and Hunted, it was very much an active presence at the time. In that book anyway. I'm sure it was, because I remember really enjoying that, being like, yeah, damn right, Vietnam.
Well, now I'm thinking just movies. Like I was hoping, this is just silly hope, but I'm hoping Prey kicks off this whole,
anthology kind of thing.
Anthology, yeah.
Did the bear hunting in this make you stoked for what we might see in Prey?
No. I love the idea. I love the concept, but they didn't really exploit it well, The Predators
it was one brief moment, weren't it? Yeah.
I just thought the
he said
visual of the predators hunting bears in terms of the dancing, like you were saying, like it makes me think of like, oh, how could they portray that on screen, like fighting a bear? Like it could be
on
cool
the
to
comic
see.
book Prey, I thought it was pretty good. Better
Prey?
than this at least. Wasn't it Prey? What was that comic called?
Primal.
Primal. Thank you. It started with a P. I'm drinking. This is
I
alcohol.
don't think that's a very popular story, you know.
Yeah,
It's
I
been
think it was
so
just
long since I read that one.
what was that, one issue or two? I think it was 2 issues. It was a 2-issue limited series. Yeah.
And the Predator
So
gets spanked or something, doesn't he?
yeah, I wonder if it's in the omnibus coming out. So
It'll be collected in there somewhere. It's in Dark Horses.
yes,
So I would imagine Marvel will put it out.
yeah, and that comes September, I think.
Yes, that's right. September. Yeah, September. Because it came out in the May
Looking forward
solicitations. We all thought it was coming out in May, but no, it was September.
Yep.
Well, you know what? At the end of all that, at the end of all the complaining, I'll still happily reread this. You know, I still really fucking enjoy it. And I will happily revisit this book. I don't hold it quite as highly as I originally did because the lack of Predators bothers me a bit more now. But it's still damn solid as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm happy I read it. Happy I own it. I don't think I'll revisit it anytime soon. And I don't know what to say if someone doesn't own it and needs to drop like $100 to buy it.
Well,
let's put a big question mark on that.
Are you looking at prices, Aaron?
No, I said I'd read some of the comments on the socials in regards
did.
to this one. So I've already mentioned Lee, Xenopedia editor. So he says, probably my favorite of the Predator novels. I honestly didn't expect much going in because I wasn't the biggest fan of Perry Sr.'s earlier work in the franchise, but this was an excellent read. David Winters says, been a while since I've read it, but it's definitely the best of this DH Press run of novels. I disagree there. Although he says, good cover. Yep, too right. Robert Thompson, definitely my favorite Predator book. I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'm sorry, but somebody said not bad at all. I liked this one. Tamis Juas, this one and Predator South China Sea are the best Predator novels. God, there is a lot of love for this book. Alistair McKeever, this is the first Predator novel I read, and so far is definitely my favorite. Always thought it would make an excellent film. I like the whole grizzled retired sniper in a ghillie suit thing. I think I'll have to read it again now I've seen this post. And this, here's one. Damon Michael. I always cast Tommy Lee Jones in my head when I read the main character. You think about
that? I can't say I did.
No?
That would work though.
Yeah, I could see that.
It would work.
Maybe I'm the hardest on this book, I guess. You know what? Let me.
So off the page, Alan Carter, I really like Turnabout. In fact, I reread it last week. Love the plot element of an aging forest ranger, former Marine sniper in Vietnam War, taking on some predators.
I don't know who's the guy in Avatar who plays the old antagonist.
Oh, he's good. He's in that Don't Breathe movie.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. What's his name? He was in that really awful sci-fi back in the past as well. Stephen Lang, that's his name.
Someone who's just old and really in shape.
So fortunately, I feel not alone, I guess. I'm at Goodreads. I like to go there. And so does Brian Thomas Schmidt. He always reviews these books.
Yeah, I read his.
It's rated.
Did he review this one?
Yeah, I found him here. He says,
on Goodreads.
A standout Predator novel marred only by the feeling of dragged out pacing a bit in the last third. A great read with good characters and better character development than any Predator novel so far. So he felt it dragged in the last third, just like me. Another person, decent affair towards the end of the book. The author tends to drag the plot a bit, which tends to get boring. Yeah. So it feels like I'm not the only one that feels like he loses his way. So that's good. But they're still giving it, like Brian gave it 4 stars. This other reviewer gave it 3 stars out of 5. It's still a decent book to read. It's not a bad book.
And the reception still is positive, as we just saw.
Yes.
There was not a single negative response on any of the social.
Even mine is a 7 out of 10.
things.
What is that on that scale? Our new scale. What does that mean? Do any of you guys know?
7's generally solid.
Solid 7.
There you go. Solid 7. So, and I would definitely recommend it at its $6.99 book.
Yeah,
Right.
2008.
So I did just look, and eBay has a few between 30 and 50. They don't look like they're in great shape, but
then again, I think I spent 30 on the Predator 2 novelization. And
yeah, I think I must have too. That was one I got way after the fact. Yeah.
And I think I'd rather the Predator 2 novel than Turnabout.
Yeah, that was a good novelization. So
I need to revisit that one as well. But yeah, so lots of bitching, but we love the book. Well, we enjoy the book.
Yes, we do.
So weird episode. I would say let everybody else let us know how you feel about this book, but we've already been through and seen it. But feel free to comment on any of the stuff that we've said, anything we may have missed, or things that you love or hate about the book. If you'd like to follow me personally on Twitter, and only Twitter, not real life, please. I've had enough of those. You can find me at _Corporal Hicks.
If you'd like to follow me personally on Twitter or Instagram, it's at RidgeTop21.
And if you'd like to follow me at Twitter, it's FN VoodooMagic.
And Adam, do add the website. I hate it.
So if you'd like to visit our website.
No, I hate the whoring. I have to do enough whoring out as it is.
I can just do it on automatic now. Let's do it. Okay, so if you'd like to visit our website, where we have reviews, editorials, interviews, information about the series, and all sorts of great stuff, just head on over to avpgalaxy.net. Best website ever. And if you'd like to check out old school message discussion boards to engage with other fans, we have that on our site as well. See, that was pretty good. Right?
You know what I keep meaning to do is just script something out, record it, and then just insert that all the time.
Oh, come on. That's too lazy.
It's not lazy. It's efficient.
AvP Galaxy is your #1 source for Alien and Predator content. Everyone knows.
20th Century Fox once described us as the pulse of the online Alien and Predator community.
Oh, is that where that tagline came from?
That's where that tag came from. That was from Fox.
Nice.
I shit you
not.
That's cool. I did not know that story. We're also on all the major socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast and you'd like to see our faces on this podcast, on this podcast or in a future podcast, you can watch our podcast on YouTube. Yeah.
What do we normally do on Sundays, Adam?
Oh yeah, we normally live stream video games. So if you like watching us play Alien and Predator video games, both modern and retro, we usually stream on Sundays. We've been more regular about that this year. And we usually start at noon Mountain Time. So that would be like
7 p.m. British time.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, that about covers it, I think.
Okay, cool. This has been Corporal Hicks,
RidgeTop,
and VoodooMagic.
Get into the chopper.
Or get into the radio station.
Get into the airplane while it gets, shot out of the sky.
We're getting to Mary.
Oh, we know where Voodoo's mind is. It's not quite night time yet, Voodoo. Give the wife a chance.
Honey.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.